He was going to expel you, wasn't he?
No.
Pretty convenient that he was deep-fried that very same day.
The diabolical anti-superhero universe of The Boys and Gen V never shies away from putting out parody versions of other popular superheroes, and Tek Knight is a glorious addition to the list. First introduced in The Boys spin-off series Gen V, this unique personality is a cross between Batman and Iron Man. Just like them, Tek Knight relies on his wealth and advanced technology to fight crime, and his detective-like skills will certainly remind you of Batman's crime investigation methods. As of now, we have enough reason to believe that Tek Knight will have a significant role to play in The Boys Season 4. And in this video, we'll explore the intricate details of his physiology and personality. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Its soundtrack of Nirvana hits, and a 12-minute sequence that's entirely pitch black.
Who is Tek Knight, and how did he become a supe? Tek Knight goes by the name Robert Vernon, and he's one of the supporting antagonists in The Boys comic book series. Although the character has been adapted in Gen V and The Boys, certain changes have been made, and we'll explore both his backstories in this video. According to the comic books, Tek Knight is one of the founding members of the supe team Payback, which is a parody of the Avengers. In fact, the one shown in the comic books is actually the third person to take up the mantle of Tek Knight, and he does not have Compound V in his system, and thus lacks any superpowers. It's his technologically advanced suit that is the source of all his powers, and he also uses certain advanced vehicles to operate out of his secret headquarters. In the show, however, things are quite different when it comes to his origins. Here, his parents accepted the offer from Vought to inject Robert with Compound V when he was a baby. This turns him into a supe and grants him a few superpowers over the years. He goes on to graduate from Godolkin University, which we see in Gen V, and he eventually becomes the popular supe Tek Knight. Does Tek Knight actually have any superpowers? How do the comic book version and show version differ from each other? As we've already mentioned, Tek Knight was created as a parody of the likes of Batman and Iron Man. Neither of these superheroes have any personal superpowers as such. Similarly, the comic book version of Tek Knight was set up with no superpowers. It was his abundant wealth that allowed him to take up the superhero mantle, and his powerful suit served as the perfect weapon. It was equipped with all kinds of gadgets, and these increased his strength, speed, and durability against his opponents. This version is actually more in line with Iron Man than Batman, but his appearance in Gen V and The Boys has changed a few things about him. For starters, he does possess a few superpowers, and his exceptional ability to deduce his surroundings comes from his heightened senses, which we'll explore later in the video. This is actually closer to Batman than Iron Man, and even his basic powers like strength and durability are shown to be at par with the majority of the other supes. What makes Tek Knight so rich? Wealth is Tek Knight's greatest superpower, and the source of this wealth has varied in the comic books and in the show. The comic book version of Robert Vernon is actually a public figure just like Bruce Wayne, and he has his companies up and running that provide him with a constant flow of money. In fact, one of the driving forces behind his urge to secure more and more money is his ambition of becoming a supe. Without any superpowers, all Tek Knight has is his wealth, which allows him to develop his technology and bring him on par with other supes. Meanwhile, the show version is more practical, and since he's injected with Compound V, he also possesses some superpowers. More importantly, the source of his wealth in the show comes from being a popular television personality who hosts his own shows. We've seen Tek Knight host a true crime series, and even Vought Expo markets his shows. Why does Tek Knight have strange sexual habits? Exploring the secret behind his perversions. This is one thing that's roughly the same in both the comic book version and the show version of this unique supe. He's a freak when it comes to his urges and fantasies, and one of his most infamous characteristics is his proclivity for inanimate objects. In fact, the comic book version of the character takes it a step further, and his desires act out on a more disgusting level. There's an instance where he has sexual relations with random creatures, and his sister's chinchilla dies because of his strange perversions. The show does not hold back when it comes to exposing his dark side, but he's more restricted to his inanimate fantasies. The extent of his sudden urges towards random inanimate objects with holes in them is so great that he can hardly control his impulses. However, the real reason behind his actions is somewhat tragic. It's been explained that he has a brain tumor that causes his unusual proclivity, and he really cannot help how he acts out in these situations. He can't control himself, irrespective of his surroundings or circumstances, and his disturbing behavior actually has an unfortunate backstory. After he got to know about his condition, he immediately dismissed his sidekick Gladio because his compulsion was causing him to fantasize about his young ward as well. This shows that Tek Knight doesn't choose his sexual habits on purpose, and he even does his best to avoid certain confrontations till the time he's aware. In fact, if his tumor proves to be fatal, then the days are numbered for Tek Knight, unless the boys come for him first. He has a horrid death in the comic books, and even his dying dream was saving the planet by having sex with an asteroid, and you can expect a similarly bizarre fate for him in the show as well. What makes him the ultimate lie detector? Exploring his power of superhuman deduction. Tech Knight is a great asset to have for investigations, and especially for interrogations. He has this unique ability to sniff out the truth, and he detects lies like magic. In order to understand the true extent of his capabilities, you have to consider how great detectives work. A lot of the skill lies in the cognitive abilities and observational skills, and fictional detectives like Sherlock Holmes are shown to be so good at their craft that they detect any anomaly immediately. It works similarly for Tech Knight as well, and Robert Vernon is a master of closely observing the ones he interrogates. He keeps an eye out for their mannerisms and behavioral changes while answering the questions. But the biggest help possibly comes from his superpowers. For instance, he could tell about a secret relationship simply because he could smell the girl on the guy's breath. He could also tell from someone's elevated heart rate that the person was lying. And if he was there earlier among the seven, he could have easily detected Stormfront's secret within seconds. His deduction skills act on such microscopic levels that even the tiniest of details are never missed. And combined with his heightened senses, it makes it easy for him to arrive at the conclusion. Does Tech Knight have superhuman vision? We've already spoken about how Tech Knight's show version possesses some common superpowers that you see among those individuals who've been administered with Compound V. His eyesight is far better than the average human, and he can perceive things with unthinkable detail and precision. Even things that are not visible to the naked eye, such as adrenaline seeping through pores and dilated eyes or blood passing through the veins, are seen by him with his special vision. And this helps his deduction abilities to a great extent. How do his superhuman hearing and heightened sense of smell work? Aside from the vision of a hawk, Tech Knight also makes use of his super hearing abilities to deduce his surroundings and situations. He can hear the heartbeat of a person, which is obviously undetectable for an average human, and he immediately gets to know if they're lying to him or whether they're fearful and anxious. Just like most other supes out there, Tech Knight can hear very high frequencies that go undetected by the human ear. As for his smelling powers, he can detect the slightest of nuances, and there are a few creepy moments, such as the time he found out about someone ovulating simply by smell. He could also smell an individual on another, which helped him catch lies about them being together. What are some of Tech Knight's finest gadgets? For a supe who's powered by his money and technology, his advanced gadgets are his primary assets. You cannot imagine Iron Man without his suit and his riches, and you cannot comprehend a Batman without his fancy cars and tools. Similarly, Tech Knight is not half as important as he is without his technological wonders. One of the best things about his armory has to be his suit, which allows him to fly around and makes him extremely durable. The suit is similar to Iron Man's suit in many ways, and it even allows him to fire at his enemies when fitted with the right weapons. Apart from his Tech Knight armor, the supe is also shown using a fancy automobile called the Night Racer. It's one of his several vehicles, just like Batman, but there are some special features in the Night Racer that help him in troubled times. How can we best describe Tech Knight's personality? Robert Vernon is an extremely smart and rich man, and he has certain perversions that he cannot control. But the supe avatar of Tech Knight is a much more complicated personality than that. His intelligence can be clearly proven from the fact that he never engages or antagonizes the boys directly. Although he's viewed as a negative character, he's done nothing as demented and morally wrong as some of the other supes. Even Butcher describes him as a nice person who's highly homophobic, and Soldier Boy once remarked how Robert was the only one who was nice to him in Payback. However, the comic book version of Tech Knight has trouble managing his temper. He lashes out furiously at his butler for outing him on his shameful attempt to force himself in his ears, and even Butcher and Huey are not spared when they entered his secret hideout a second time. While he's not exactly evil, Tech Knight is a scheming person who can be incredibly selfish. He only cares about his own reputation and fame, and he can turn a blind eye to the lives of those he destroys in the process. Perhaps his most heinous act is how he falsely frames certain people for crimes they never committed, and some of the people even kill themselves in the aftermath of such allegations. Overall, Tech Knight is a great character who's easy to hate both in the comic books and in the show, and his health condition is not enough to buy him sympathy for all his crimes. Is Tech Knight capable of fathering children? If inanimate objects were capable of reproducing, Tech Knight would have produced a variety of gadgets and random objects from his wild exploits. Jokes apart, Tech Knight cannot choose what he picks to satisfy his desires, but it's not clear if he's even attracted to normal humans. The show version in particular leaves this in the dark, and you mostly see him running after holes in tree trunks and random gadgets in the most random places. In the comic books, he finds himself attracted to his butler and his sidekick, but we've not really seen him have a normal relationship with a woman. Thus, it's questionable whether or not he can father a child, but given that he's sexually active and has no major health issues aside from his brain tumor, he probably could if he wanted to. At least, he doesn't have any radioactive contamination affecting his sperm. And Tech Knight could well be with a woman and reproduce normally if his brain permitted him the attraction for the opposite sex, instead of walls and showpieces. Can Tek Knight be killed easily? If you consider him strictly from a suit perspective, he's certainly not among the strongest of them. For the likes of Homelander, Ryan, Soldier Boy, and even Victoria Newman, one has to think twice and plan closely in order to eliminate them. But Tek Knight might not require such a special effort. The comic book version is particularly vulnerable without any superpowers, and if he's tracked without his powerful suit, he can be killed just like any other human being. In the show, Compound V makes him stronger than the average human, but he can still be killed quite easily. We don't know if bullets can get the job done, but surely the boys can find a way if they have to. Also, soups like Starlight and Kimiko can easily do some irreparable damage to Tek Knight, and he wouldn't stand a chance without his technological supremacy. So to answer the question in short, yes, Tek Knight is probably among the easiest soups to kill, and it's his high intelligence that keeps him alive, because he knows how to strike the right alliances at the right time, and stay away from the wrong people. The comic book is not too kind with his fate, and he dies from simple blunt force trauma, while hallucinating that he's saving the world from an asteroid. Can we see Tek Knight in action in the next episode of The Boys? The Boys Season 4 has been no less than a treat for the fans, and at the time of creating this video, we've already seen the trailer of the 6th episode. The brief look at the upcoming episodes suggests that Homelander, Victoria Newman, and the Seven are in Tek Knight's mansion, and they seem to be stuck. There are a few hints and rumors doing the rounds that much of this episode will take place in the mansion, and this means we get to see more of Tek Knight in the narrative. It's all said to be a nightmarish moment, and you expect a few bodies to roll because things are about to get nasty. We don't yet know why Tek Knight has thrown a party for everyone in the first place, but we could see him pick up an important role. Also, don't rule out the possibility of Tek Knight dying a horrible death if the Soups and the Boys are at war anytime soon. Do let us know in the comments about your thoughts on this unlikely Soup and his bizarre fantasies. Also, tell us how you think the ongoing season of The Boys can utilize this character going ahead. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
You want to establish a baseline and build a rapport.
Miss Moreau's body language is open.